Have you ever made yourself smaller to make others comfortable? Have you ever dimmed your light because shining brightly felt too risky? Have you ever chosen safety over significance because playing small seemed easier than standing tall? Today, I want to tell you about Nina Patel, a woman who spent years hiding her brilliance behind a mask of modesty until one moment forced her to choose between staying invisible or claiming the space she deserved. Her story will show you that playing small doesn't protect you from failure. It guarantees it. Because the biggest risk in life isn't trying and failing. It's never trying at all and spending your life wondering what could have been. This is a story about what happens when you finally stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant to contain you. Nina Patel was a 31-year-old architect who designed beautiful homes for wealthy clients. Small residential projects that paid the bills but never challenged her abilities. She had graduated top of her class from one of the best architecture schools in the country, with professors who told her she had the vision to design buildings that could change skylines. But Nina had learned early to play it safe. Growing up as the daughter of immigrants in a predominantly white suburb, she had mastered the art of not standing out, not taking up too much space, not appearing too ambitious. When teachers praised her work, she downplayed it. When opportunities arose, she questioned whether she deserved them. When her vision was bold, she diluted it to something more realistic. Now, a decade into her career, Nina worked at Mitchell & Associates, a mid-sized firm where she handled the projects nobody else wanted, the safe, boring, forgettable ones. Her designs were competent, but unremarkable. Her presence was polite, but invisible. She had become exactly what she'd trained herself to be. Small. Then everything changed. Mitchell & Associates was invited to compete for the design of the Riverside Cultural Center, a $50 million project that would become the city's new landmark for arts, community, and culture. It was the kind of project that launched careers, that got featured in architecture magazines, that turned architects into household names. The firm's senior partners would typically handle such a prestigious competition, but fate intervened when the lead architect, Richard Sterling, suffered a heart attack 2 weeks before the proposal deadline. The firm was in chaos. They couldn't withdraw from the competition. Their reputation depended on submitting something, but they had no one ready to take over. In a partners meeting Nina wasn't supposed to hear, she overheard James Mitchell, the firm's founder, say, "We need someone who can pull together a decent proposal. It doesn't have to win. We just can't afford to not submit anything. Who do we have?" "What about Nina Patel?" someone suggested. "She's reliable, she won't cause problems, and she'll do what we tell her." Nina stood outside that door, feeling something break inside her. Was this what her career had become? The person they chose because she was reliable and wouldn't cause problems? The backup plan? The safe option? The stakes were suddenly crystal clear. Nina could accept this role, play small, submit a forgettable proposal, maintain her comfortable invisibility. Or she could do something terrifying. She could create the design she actually believed in, even if it meant standing out, taking risks, and possibly failing spectacularly. But the deeper stake was this. Nina was running out of time to answer a question that had haunted her for years. Was she actually talented, or had she just been good at following rules? The only way to find out was to stop playing small and show the world what she was really capable of. Nina was given the assignment the next morning. James Mitchell called her into his office with a patronizing smile. "Nina, we're giving you a wonderful opportunity. Richard's incident has created an opening, and we think you're ready to step up. Of course, we'll guide you closely. We have a pretty clear idea of what the proposal should look like. Traditional, elegant, something that honors the city's architectural heritage. Nothing too experimental. Can you handle that?" Nina felt the familiar instinct to nod, smile, and comply. But something stopped her. Maybe it was hearing herself described as someone who won't cause problems. Maybe it was turning 31 and realizing she had spent 10 years being invisible. Maybe it was just exhaustion from always making herself smaller. "Actually," Nina heard herself say, I'd like to propose something different. Mitchell's eyebrows rose. Different? The brief asks for a cultural center that brings the community together, but the approach you're describing, traditional, heritage-focused, that's not bringing people together. That's celebrating the people who've always been centered. What if we designed something that actually reflected the diversity of who lives in this city now? The room went silent. Nina's heart pounded. She had just contradicted her boss, challenged the firm's approach, and revealed that she had opinions, 3 things she had trained herself never to do. Mitchell's expression was unreadable. That's quite a perspective, Nina. But this is a major competition. We can't afford to be too risky. With respect, sir, we also can't afford to be forgettable. 8 firms are competing for this. If we submit something safe and traditional, we're just one more voice saying the same thing. But if we submit something that genuinely represents this community, all of it, we might actually win. Nina waited for him to shut her down. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, studying her with new interest. You've been here 6 years, Nina. In that time, I don't think I've heard you speak more than 10 sentences in any meeting. Why now? Because for 6 years, I've been playing small, Nina said, surprising herself with her honesty. And I'm done. Mitchell was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something unexpected. Okay, you have 2 weeks. Show me what Nina Patel can do when she's not playing small. But understand this, if you fail, it reflects on the entire firm. And on you. Nina spent the next 3 days sketching like someone possessed. She barely slept. She filled notebooks with ideas. She designed a building that was unlike anything the city had ever seen. A structure that blended modern architecture with cultural elements from the communities that actually lived in Riverside. The immigrant neighborhoods, the artists, the working-class families who had been pushed to the margins. Her design featured a central gathering space, where all the walls were made of translucent panels that could display community art, creating a building that would literally be shaped by the people who used it. The roofline incorporated architectural elements from 5 different cultural traditions. The interior spaces were flexible, adaptable, democratic, not telling people how to use the building, but inviting them to make it their own. It was bold. It was unconventional. It was exactly what Nina believed the city needed. She presented her initial concepts to the partners on day 4. She walked into that conference room with her boards, her heart racing, trying to channel confidence she didn't quite feel. For 10 minutes, she presented her vision. When she finished, the room was silent. Then Margaret Chen, one of the partners, spoke. Nina, this is unexpected. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Nina asked. Honestly, I don't know. It's so different from anything we've ever done. James Mitchell cleared his throat. It's ambitious. Maybe too ambitious. Too ambitious for the firm or too ambitious for me? Nina asked, her voice steadier than she felt. The question hung in the air. Mitchell had the grace to look uncomfortable. Nina, said David Park, the youngest partner, I think this is brilliant. It's exactly what this project should be. But you need to understand, if we submit this and lose, people will say we got too experimental, too risky. They'll say we should have stayed traditional. And if we submit something safe and lose, Nina countered, they'll say we were forgettable. At least with this, we lose standing for something meaningful. Margaret leaned forward. And if we win? Nina smiled. If we win, we'll have created something that actually matters. Isn't that why we became architects? The partners exchanged glances. Finally, Mitchell nodded. Okay, Nina, you have 1 week to develop this into a full proposal. But I'm warning you, there are going to be people who hate this, including people in this firm. He was right. Over the next week, Nina faced resistance from every direction. Senior architects at the firm called her design inappropriate and unprofessional. A colleague told her she was trying too hard to make a political statement. Someone left an anonymous note on her desk. Know your place. The old Nina would have retreated, would have apologized, would have made her design smaller, safer, more palatable. But something had shifted. Every time someone told her to play small, Nina doubled down. She refined her design, strengthened her arguments, and prepared for the competition presentation like her life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. 3 days before the presentation, Nina got a call from her mother. "Beta, James Mitchell called me," her mother said. Nina's stomach dropped. "He wanted to know if I knew what you were doing, putting yourself out there like this. He said you were taking a big risk." "Mom, I told him that you've been playing small your whole life and it's about time you stopped," her mother said firmly. "When you were little, you used to draw the most incredible buildings, structures that defied gravity, that mixed colors no one thought should go together. Then you started school, and you learned to draw what teachers expected. You got praised for following rules and criticized for being different. And somewhere along the way, my bold daughter became cautious." Tears pricked Nina's eyes. "I thought I was being smart, professional. You were surviving," her mother said gently. "But Beta, you're 31 now. When are you going to start living?" That conversation gave Nina the final push she needed. She stopped second-guessing her design. She stopped diluting her vision to make others comfortable. She stopped playing small. The night before the presentation, Nina stood in her apartment looking at the boards she'd created. They were bold, unconventional, and utterly her. For the first time in her career, she had created something that wasn't just competent. It was extraordinary. She was terrified, but she was also ready. The competition presentation took place in front of the city's cultural committee, 12 people who would decide which design would become reality. Nina was the 6th firm to present, which meant she had to sit through 5 other proposals first. Each one was impressive. Each one was traditional, elegant, safe. Each one looked like every other cultural center in every other city. Then it was Nina's turn. She walked to the front of the room, set up her boards, and took a breath. Her hands were shaking. Every instinct screamed at her to apologize in advance, to downplay her design, to prepare them for how different it would be. Instead, she did something revolutionary. She owned it. "Good afternoon. My name is Nina Patel, and I'm here to present a cultural center that doesn't just reflect this city's history, it reflects its future." For the next 20 minutes, Nina presented with a passion she didn't know she possessed. She talked about architecture as democracy, about buildings that don't impose culture, but celebrate it, about the radical act of designing spaces where everyone, not just the wealthy or the historically powerful, feels welcome. She showed how the translucent panels could display community art, making the building a living canvas. She explained how the architectural elements from different cultures weren't just decorative but structural, showing that diversity isn't just aesthetic, it's foundational. When she finished, the room was silent. Nina's heart sank. She'd gone too far, been too bold, too much. Then one committee member, an elderly woman named Dr. Patricia Johnson, spoke. "In 40 years of serving on this committee, I have never seen a proposal that made me feel seen. Every other design today showed me beautiful buildings that look like they belong in this city's past. Your design showed me a building that looks like it belongs in all of our futures." Another committee member, a younger man, raised his hand. "But Ms. Patel, isn't this design risky? What if the community doesn't respond to it?" Nina took a breath. "Yes, it's risky. But you know what's riskier? Building another monument to who we used to be instead of celebrating who we're becoming. If we want different results, we need different courage." A committee member in the back row leaned forward. "Your senior partners, did they approve this design?" Nina could lie, could protect herself, could play small one more time. Instead, she chose truth. Some did, some didn't. But this isn't about playing politics or pleasing everyone. This is about designing a building that actually serves the community it's meant to represent. And I believe this design does that. The committee deliberated for what felt like hours, but was actually 20 minutes. When they returned, Dr. Johnson spoke first. "We've made our decision." Nina didn't win. Nina, at least not immediately. The committee was split. 3 designs, including Nina's, were selected as finalists. They would have 1 more month to refine their proposals and present again. But something more important happened. As Nina packed up her boards, Dr. Johnson approached her. "Ms. Patel, regardless of what happens in the final round, I want you to know something. In my 4 decades of community work, I've watched talented people shrink themselves to fit into spaces that were never designed for them. I've watched brilliant ideas get diluted until they became forgettable. You didn't do that today. You showed up fully, and that matters." Over the next month, Nina refined her design, but this time, she wasn't alone. Young architects from other firms reached out, inspired by her presentation. Community members contacted her, offering to contribute. The local immigrant association asked if they could partner with her to ensure the design truly represented their communities. Nina's design evolved from her vision into our vision, a building that belonged to the community before it was even built. The final presentation was different. Nina didn't present alone. She brought 3 community members with her, an immigrant artist, a local teacher, and a young activist, who talked about what the building would mean to them. When the committee announced their decision, Nina held her breath. The Riverside Cultural Center will be designed by Mitchell and Associates, with Nina Patel as lead architect. Nina had won. But more importantly, she had discovered something crucial. Playing small doesn't protect you from failure or criticism. It just ensures that when you do fail, you fail by never trying. 6 months into construction, James Mitchell pulled Nina aside. "I owe you an apology. When we first gave you this project, I thought we were doing you a favor. I didn't realize you were doing us one. This building is going to be our legacy. But more than that, you've changed this firm. Young architects here are taking risks now, proposing bold ideas, refusing to play small. You showed them it was possible." 3 years later, at the Cultural Center's opening ceremony, Nina stood in front of the building she had designed. It was more beautiful than she had imagined. Walls that shifted colors with the community art displayed on them, spaces filled with people from every background, a structure that didn't just house culture, but celebrated it in all its diversity. A young architecture student approached Nina nervously. "Ms. Patel, I'm studying architecture, and I'm terrified I'm not good enough. How did you get the courage to do this?" Nina smiled, remembering when she had been that student. "I stopped waiting to be good enough and started believing I was worthy of the space I took up. The courage didn't come before the action. It came from the action." She looked at the building behind her. "We spend so much time trying to fit into spaces that weren't designed for us. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop shrinking yourself and start designing new spaces. Spaces big enough for everyone to stand tall." If you're watching this video today, I want you to ask yourself an uncomfortable question. Where are you playing small? Where in your life are you dimming your light because shining brightly feels too risky? Where are you holding back your ideas because someone might criticize them? Where are you shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant to contain all of who you are? Maybe you're staying in a job that doesn't challenge you because taking a risk feels too scary. Maybe you're not sharing your creative work because you're afraid people will judge it. Maybe you're not speaking up in meetings, not pursuing that opportunity, not taking that chance, all because playing small feels safer than standing tall. But here's what Nina's story teaches us. Playing small doesn't protect you. It imprisons you. Every time you make yourself smaller to make others comfortable, you're not being humble. You're being dishonest. You're hiding your gifts, your vision, your potential. And the world doesn't need more people playing small. The world needs you at your full size, in your full power, sharing your full brilliance. Yes, rising above challenges is hard. Yes, standing tall means you might get criticized, judged, or rejected. But you know what's harder? Spending your life wondering what would have happened if you had just been brave enough to try. So here's your challenge. This week, identify one area where you've been playing small. Then do one thing. Just one. that requires you to show up fully. Maybe it's sharing an idea in a meeting. Maybe it's posting that creative project you've been hiding. Maybe it's applying for that opportunity you think you don't deserve. Maybe it's just taking up physical space without apologizing for it. Whatever it is, stop shrinking. Stop apologizing for your existence. Stop dimming your light to make others comfortable with their darkness. You were not designed to be small. You were designed to be exactly as big as you are, full of ideas, vision, passion, and potential. The only question is, will you give yourself permission to occupy that space? Remember Nina's transformation. She didn't gain new skills or talents. She simply stopped hiding the ones she already had. She stopped asking permission to be excellent and started claiming the space she deserved. You have that same power right now. The courage you're waiting to feel, it comes from the action, not before it. You don't need to feel brave to act brave. You just need to act, and the bravery follows. Stop playing small. The world is waiting for the full-sized version of you. And trust me, that version is extraordinary. Thank you for watching. If Nina's story resonated with you, share this video with someone who needs permission to stop shrinking. And remember, your presence is not an imposition. Your voice is not too loud. Your dreams are not too big. You are not too much. You are exactly enough. And it's time the world saw all of you. Now go out there and rise. Rise above the doubt. Rise above the fear. Rise above every voice that ever told you to be smaller. Because your full-size self, that's the one the world needs to see.